Hello. So there's a frustrating irony to watch politicians and lawyers and a bunch of people who get paid a lot of money. Um, Ones that have gone out of their way to drive you out of your industry, claiming that, the arts is a worthless degree, cutting your budgets, getting you out of your schools, getting you out of your stages, and then watching as they engage in the art of psychological motivation with propaganda for their ulterior motives. Um, that is exactly what theater engineering is. It's the art of psychological motivation with propaganda that's always done for the good of humanity. That's the thing. And theater engineers, professionals, are always trained under this mantra of we do it for love, not money. One that kind of sets us up as being the martyrs and easily exploited, since we're told to often do it for exposure or do it for some kind of emotional benefit, even though emotions don't pay our bills. But there's also a preservation aspect to it. There are ancient rules that I've talked about before when it comes to playing with propaganda, that if you don't follow, you end up creating that propaganda side effect or the audience backlash. And so whenever people are trained in this field of psychological motivation, it is to do it for humanity's good. And so if we look at history, we always find these periods of time where you have this period of time where it looks like the world is going to kind of self-destruct, where corruption and egos and almost like this spiritual power tries to dominate the entire world and threaten to oppress everybody. And then here comes the artist revolution that ends up just destroying the whole power trip and motivating people to find out why it's worth fighting for the things that they believe in. That the good of nature or humanity for itself. I feel like right now we're too, I don't know, fact-driven? What is this fact-driven? And we can look at lawyers and say, well, lawyers pull facts from random cases in order to create an emotional argument. And so you can be fact-driven, but still not be in the context of the thing that you're actually defending. You can create all kinds of emotional arguments and end up manipulating people into whatever agenda that you want. That's something that they do. I call them the egotistical actors of the courtroom, if you would. And politicians, they can do the same thing. The egotistical actors of government. And so to watch these egotistical actors engage in a propaganda campaign that is designed to influence the minds of people, only to scam us out of our own taxes and out of the U.S. Treasury and embezzle from the U.S. Treasury. It's so ironic that in America, that people who get paid $200,000 plus are able to go to taxpayers who are struggling and beg them for money for either a campaign or to fund their legal fees. I don't understand this. How is it that billionaires get to be funded, freeload, off taxpayers under this donate, donate, donate to me, donate to me, donate to me, and then turn around and claim they want pure capitalism, where a corporation or a company is not allowed to have donations? The loophole for me is that I'm an artist, and so you can sponsor me, you can support me as a patron, and then I can take that capital that you support me as a patron, turn it into capital, and then I become the investor of my own company. I can do it that way. But we look at a lot of people and they're using this donation system that are freaking billionaires. And so they can afford to support their own campaigns. They can afford to fund their own legal trials. And yet they turn around and they tell the American taxpayer who is struggling to pay their bills, even more so as our economy is crashing, that we have to fund them under some kind of emotional benefit. They use this emotional guilt or emotional power trip. Do this for me, do this for me. And they can afford to do it for themselves. If we want to be pure capitalists, then why can't they fund their own campaigns? Why can't they do their own thing? I can get heard from all over the world on virtually pennies a day. It is possible to run a campaign and not have to spend billions of dollars just to get heard. So I don't understand the hypocrisy of all this. And it's frustrating for an artist who is almost forced into this slavery of and starving artist type thing just to do our passion. And then here we have a bunch of people who get paid out the wazoo who are freeloading and demanding donations. I just don't understand that. So an artist revolution is necessary whenever we get to that point where the world has done lost its mind. When people are just fact-driven, are not looking at each other as people anymore, are so opposed to everything, are so offended at everything, it's just so emotionally crazed that we need the relief of the arts. And it's not commercialism art. The arts right now has kind of gotten forced in this commercialism where we're forced to do whatever the consumer wants, you know, this decoration of it, rather than what art really should be, which is a communication platform. It's a thing that's designed to make you think. It gets up in your face. And I'm not talking so much of the abstract art, I'm talking about the storytelling aspect of art. The thing that allows us to take a complex idea and look at it from a small model form and examine it. What does love look like? What does hate look like? What does all these things look like? How do we break this complex ideas of the other into a small form and look at this model in a way that we can relate to the characters and learn the lessons? That is theater arts. It's not commercialism. Broadway right now has gone so commercialism that now we're taking movies from like the 80s, cult movies, and turning them into Broadway shows. It's all about entertainment, but it shouldn't be. I remember the time whenever I was studying and about the theaters that would be, you know, right there in the whole political government climate, you know, the entertainment or the environment. Like the whenever there was a shirt factory fire and we had the Pins and Needles theater company, that they actually got stormed because they got stormed by the local authorities because they didn't like what they were saying. You know, the artists are always going to be the rebels, the ones that's going to stand against whatever the status quo is and pull the rest of society with us. So here is basically what theater arts brings to the world. Hope, healing, openness, playfulness, and empowerment. Very simple things and very necessary things, because when there is a presence of hope, something powerful happens to the things that cause people to lose their mind. In the presence of hope, there can be no doubt. And when doubt is missing, fear can no longer reign over hearts. And it's the fear that causes people to lose their mind and attack each other and assume that everybody is out to get them and everyone is an enemy. Hope is what we need right now in our world. And that's what the artists are bringing. Usually theater arts does it through a storytelling. I don't have that access to a theatrical stage anymore. So cyber becomes my theatrical stage, and whatever stories I can bring forward, that's where I'll get my hope. This one's from Aesop's Fables, and sometimes we just have to go back to the basics, to the children's stories. That's where a lot of this comes from. Remember the things that we learned as little kids and that our mamas taught us. The Gnat and the Lion. There once was a tiny gnat who had no fear, and he went striding up to a lion who could barely see him and said, "I am not in the least bit afraid of you. What does your strength amount to after all? I'm stronger than you, and if you don't believe it, let us fight and see." And with that, the gnat sounded his battle horn, darted in, and bit the lion's nose. But when the lion felt the sting, he was furious. However, in his haste to swat the gnat, he only succeeded in scratching his nose and making it bleed. He failed altogether to hurt the gnat, which buzzed off in triumph, overjoyed. The gnat celebrations were short-lived, however. It flew straight into a spider's web and was caught and eaten by the spider. And so the gnat fell prey to an insignificant creature after having triumphed over the king of the beasts. And the moral is, no one is so great that they cannot fail. It's a good moral for everything that's going on today, especially the banks who think that they cannot fail, and the giant corporations think that they are so great that they cannot fail, and the politicians who have amassed so much power that they forgot that here in the USA, they are strictly representatives of the people, and that this nation belongs to the people, that we don't have any rulers. These are very good lessons to learn, that we can learn with children's stories. And it's just simply humbling that we have to remember, that keeps us sane and with rational thinking, that we don't assume that we're so great that somebody can't come along and just overwhelm us. And so when we work together, going back to Aristotle's 99% is far greater, small bits of us coming together by the sheer law of math and volume, our mass, when we work together, the 99% is always going to be far stronger than the 1% who think they're far more powerful than everyone else. Because no one is ever so great that they cannot fail. It's a lesson from children's stories. It's a lesson we can learn in life. And it's a lesson that the artists are always teaching in humanity and in our artwork and in our stories. The humbling that's required. That's why we do these things for love, not money. That's why we have to be humble. That's why we often get exploited. But that's the whole point. Art is powerful. And in the right hands, it can be healing. And it can bring worlds together. But in the wrong hands, it can be destructive and tear worlds apart. So, that's all I've got.